celebrates whole everything all over the whole city of New York. Sabrina Ionescu and Breanna Stewart looking like ancient people. I ain't lying. These young ladies look sensational. Now, I don't want to toot my own horn.
Hands, nice pass. Timpson.
I'm not even going to lie. The Fever bench is nasty, bro. They might have Caitlin Clark-Burley. Caitlin Clark ain't really played that much, man. But the most, to me, Raven Johnson stuck out. Now, granted, she only had 6 points. She had 8 assists, 0 turnovers, 3 rebounds, 3 steals, plus 3 blocks, and she was 3 for 3 from the field.
She finished
worth that money, man. Watch this. Watch this. Watch this right here. Watch Kelsey Mitchell. Laser. Dark. Splash, bruh. Splash.
She is bringing up
Johnson, bro. Raven Johnson get coast to coast on this. Watch it. Watch it. My goodness, Raven looked a good job. Coast to coast, bro. And Caitlin Clark made it look easy. Sophie Cunningham came out gunslinging. Gunslinging threes. Sophie looked like she could have got that.
The mainstream sports media is frantically scrambling to delete their tweets right now. The New York Liberty front office is in complete organizational meltdown mode, and the rest of the WNBA just went into full panic alert status, because what just happened in Brooklyn wasn't supposed to be possible. The Indiana Fever walked into the Barclays Center missing their franchise center Aaliyah Boston, missing their elite shooter Lexi Hall, missing veteran point guard Tiffany Mitchell, and missing Damaris Dantas. They were facing a fully loaded Liberty super team that was supposed to destroy them. Instead, they delivered the most shocking beatdown of the preseason, winning 109-91 and completely humiliating the defending Eastern Conference champions on their own floor. The doubters who said this team had no depth just got exposed in the most brutal way possible. Here's what nobody in the mainstream media wants to admit. 24 hours ago, we told you exactly what was going to happen. We broke down how Indiana's devastating injury report was actually a perfectly disguised blessing that would force their stubborn coaching staff to finally use the depth they refused to evaluate. And inside a stunned and eerily silent Barclays Center, that's exactly what played out. This wasn't just a preseason win. This was a statement that sent shockwaves through the entire league. Former MVP Breanna Stewart and elite guard Sabrina Ionescu looked like they were moving in slow motion, desperately trying to keep up with Indiana's hyperspeed transition attack. The Liberty arrogantly rolled out their championship-proven starting lineup, expecting to physically bully a depleted Fever roster. Instead, they got absolutely demolished by the deepest, most explosive bench performance in recent WNBA history. Now here's where the narrative gets completely twisted by lazy analysts who only read box scores. They're looking at Caitlin Clark's stat line and seeing 17 minutes, 7 points on 2 of 10 shooting, and 1 of 5 from 3. These uneducated casuals are desperately trying to spin this into some story about Clark struggling under pressure. Let me destroy that pathetic narrative with actual basketball analysis right now. Clark didn't struggle. She completely broke New York's defensive system without even needing to score. Liberty coach Sandy Brondello treated this meaningless preseason game like Game 7 of the finals. Within 5 minutes, she had her entire defense in full panic mode, face-guarding Clark 30 feet from the basket, sending double and triple teams, throwing multiple defenders at her just to deny a clean catch. And what did Clark do? She played elite intellectual chess, gladly accepting those triple teams and using her gravitational pull to create mathematical 4-on-3 advantages for her teammates. But here's the most mind-blowing part that's flying completely under the radar. Clark finished with 4 assists and 0 turnovers. 0. A second-year point guard facing the most aggressive trapping defense in the Eastern Conference, playing without her primary screening center, and she didn't turn the ball over once in 17 minutes of high-usage basketball. When you commit 3 elite defenders to stop one player 30 feet from the rim, you create wide-open driving lanes for everyone else. Clark's mere presence on the floor short-circuited New York's entire defensive game plan. The psychological threat of her shooting a logo 3 had Liberty defenders so focused on her that they forgot about the other 4 players on the court. You don't need to score 30 points when your gravitational impact completely destroys the opposing team's defensive coordinator. And get this, the absolute biggest story from this 109-91 massacre came directly from Indiana's bench. For the past month, every cynical critic in sports media has been screaming that the Fever's draft picks were redundant, that their roster lacked depth and that their bench was a disaster waiting to happen. Last night, those supposedly terrible bench players stepped onto a national stage against a championship-level team and scored 62 points. 62 points from the second unit. This might be the deepest, most lethal bench in the entire WNBA, and nobody saw it coming. The mathematical reality is staggering. Indiana's bench outscored most teams' entire starting lineups while completely dominating a Liberty squad that was supposed to expose their lack of talent. Let's talk about the absolute revelation that is Raven Johnson. Remember her, the controversial first-round pick that everyone said was a massive mistake because she overlapped positionally with Clark, the player that huge segments of the fan base wanted to trade before she even played a game. With Tiffany Mitchell sidelined, Johnson was thrown into major minutes against an elite, championship-tested backcourt. And what did she do under that massive pressure? She orchestrated a flawless masterclass in two-way basketball that completely silenced every single hater. 6 points on perfect 3 of 3 shooting, but scoring wasn't even the story. She terrorized New York's guards with 3 steals and 3 blocks, jumping into passing lanes like a defensive demon and refusing to let Liberty players breathe for a single second. Here's what's absolutely insane about Johnson's performance. She ran the second unit with the poise of a 10-year veteran, dishing out 8 assists with 0 turnovers against the defending Eastern Conference champions. 8 assists, 0 turnovers. She pushed pace with blinding speed, protected the basketball like her life depended on it, and finished with a massive +14 rating. She mathematically proved that she can orchestrate the offense at an elite level and allow Clark to get the rest she needs without the system collapsing into chaos. The vocal haters who claimed Johnson was a wasted draft pick are completely silent today because the game tape doesn't lie. This kid just showed she can handle elite competition while making everyone around her better. But wait, it gets even crazier. Kelsey Mitchell stepped onto that Barclays center floor and reminded everyone exactly why she's worth every penny of her $1.4 million Supermax contract. When the ball touches Mitchell's hands in the half-court, it's automatic cash. She played 17 minutes and dropped 18 highly efficient points, shooting 7 of 12 from the field and perfectly knocking down 2 of her 3 three-point attempts. She was splashing laser darts from beyond the arc all night, completely demoralizing Liberty defenders who were too focused on stopping Clark. Mitchell finished with a staggering +20 rating, proving she's the ultimate secondary assassin this offense needs to punish trapping defenses. The speed and precision she showed while operating off Clark's gravity was absolutely surgical. And then there's Sophie Cunningham, the gritty enforcer who stepped into the starting lineup due to injuries and came out gunslinging from minute 1. She splashed contested threes all night, dropping 13 points on elite 5 of 8 shooting, including 3 massive daggers from beyond the arc. But it wasn't just the shooting that stood out. It was the unmatched level of physical toughness and pure swagger she brought to every possession. Watching Cunningham operate with that level of confidence, aggressively rebounding against much larger players and defending with relentless intensity, it becomes painfully obvious that Indiana's front office should have given her a much larger contract extension. She's the ultimate enforcer this finesse offense needs to survive the physical brutality of WNBA competition. Now here's where things get really interesting. We cannot ignore the continued validation of Justine Pissott, the 6'4" sharpshooter that Indiana's front office allegedly wanted to cut just to save salary cap space. We warned them it would be organizational negligence, and last night proved us absolutely right. In exactly 10 minutes of restricted playing time, Pissott stepped on the floor and completely justified every word of our scouting report. She dropped 8 points, went 2 of 3 from the three-point line, and finished with a staggering +16 rating. +16 in 10 minutes. When you put a 6'4" sniper on the wing, opposing defenses physically cannot rotate fast enough to contest her shot. If the front office looks at this performance and still decides to cut her, they should be investigated for gross organizational malpractice. However, we maintain ruthless objectivity here, and despite the massive offensive explosion, there were concerning issues that cannot be ignored. Monique Billings was an absolute disaster on the interior when Aaliyah Boston was ruled out. The veteran was expected to anchor the paint against elite players like Jonquil Jones and Breanna Stewart, but instead looked completely lost in defensive rotations. She provided virtually 0 physical resistance, struggled to secure meaningful post position, and was entirely outplayed by hungry rookies. If Billings cannot physically anchor the paint in a backup role when the franchise center is injured, her guaranteed contract becomes a severe liability. This is exactly the lack of size we've been warning about, and it showed up in the worst possible way. But here's what's really concerning. Head coach Stephanie White cannot use this 109-point victory as an excuse to ignore the defensive lapses that occurred throughout the game. Yes, the offense was unstoppable, but giving up 91 points in 40 minutes is unacceptable for a championship-level team. There were repetitive moments of complete defensive miscommunication, missed switches on the perimeter, and a glaring lack of weak-side help that allowed easy buckets at the rim. White's defensive scheme looked disorganized whenever New York managed to break the initial point of attack. You can get away with defensive mistakes when you score 109 points, but when the regular season starts and shooting goes cold, those same lapses will cost games. The coaching staff must demand absolute perfection on defense regardless of offensive output. So here's the bottom line. Indiana just sent a terrifying message to the entire WNBA by walking into a hostile arena missing their best players and completely humiliating a championship contender on their home floor. The bench is shockingly deep. Johnson is a legitimate two-way weapon, Mitchell is an elite assassin, and Clark's gravitational presence is breaking defensive coordinators' minds without her even shooting well. The preseason narratives are being destroyed by actual game tape, and the league just realized they have a massive problem on their hands. Did Johnson silence her haters with that 8-assist masterclass? Should White immediately bench Billings for her lack of resistance? And did Pissott guarantee her roster spot with that incredible performance? Drop your predictions in the comments. Smash that subscribe button for the deepest analysis after every Fever game. And hit notifications because the greatest season in WNBA history is officially starting right now.